This is Does It Hold Up? A series where I take a look at some older games with modern eyes and I ask a deceptively simple question. Does it hold up today? Is it still worth playing today? Today, we're taking a look at the PlayStation 1's favourite bright orange marsupial, Crash Bandicoot. As a background, Crash Bandicoot is a 3D platforming game released in 1996 for the original PlayStation. It's quite an early example of a platformer to utilise the third dimension, and in its time it was actually quite well received. Crash and its gameplay was so popular that it spawned 2 sequels, as well as some spin-off games. While we're here, I'm just going to pause just to say that Crash Team Racing was my jam and to me is still my favourite kart racer today. In the PS1 era, Crash became an icon and is probably one of the biggest mascots of the console, harbouring plenty of childhood memories for 90s kids around the globe. That's why fans were so excited when the 3 PS1 Crash Bandicoot platformers were remade for the PS4 in 2017, but I'll touch on the remakes later because this video is about the original game. So, what is this game about? You are a bright orange anthropomorphic bandicoot who was created by the mad Dr. Cortex for I don't know why. There's something about rescuing some weirdly sexual female bandicoot. You know what, the plot's not important. The point is, Crash is a 3D platformer with fairly standard platformer goals. Get to the end of the level, don't touch anything that'll kill you, destroy all the crates, and eat apples, or Wumpa fruit if you want to call it that. So, the original Crash Bandicoot, does it still hold up today? The first thing about this game that I still really like is the theme. It's half Pacific Islands with tiki masks, jungle and spears, and half Australia with didgeridoo music and iconic animals like the Bandicoot and the Koala Kong. The theme though, it works. Most of the start of the game finds you in a tropical jungle environment like you're in an episode of Lost, and as you advance on, you visit a few different backdrops. The backdrops of the levels do actually provide a great atmosphere. Now, apart from the jungle stages, there's a reasonably diverse range of environments that you play in, but unfortunately, some of those environments and level designs are repeated just enough that you do feel like sometimes you're just playing the same level again, but with different puzzles in it. Like, sometimes you get to a new themed level, go, oh hey, this is pretty cool, and then at a later stage you find yourself back there and you go, oh, this one again. I will say though that towards the end of the game, you do see a more diverse range of levels that actually really make it feel like you're advancing towards your end goal of making it towards some Bond villain's lair. In this game, that's Dr. Cortex. For these, you don't only feel that you're just going through some random platforming puzzles, but that you're actually getting somewhere. The problem though, is that you need to be quite good at this game to get that far. I think they would have been wise to just add a bit more variety early on, rather than utilising the jungle theme for what feels like the first quarter or third of the game. And that takes me to my next point, the difficulty. This game is hard. While recording this, I came to the conclusion that Crash Bandicoot doesn't care if it makes you cry. In fact, I feel like it wants you to cry so that it can laugh at you in front of your family. This is the kind of game that makes you yell at your screen and throw your controller. But rather than yelling at the game, you're kind of yelling at yourself. Because the truth is, the game is hard, but it doesn't feel cheap. You feel this sense of urgency in your platforming, which sometimes encourages you to rush. But the game punishes you if you rush, with only the smallest mistake setting you back. So you have to be urgent, but still calm and calculated. That being said, you can lower your difficulty in a way by choosing not to go for all the crates. In order to 100% the game, you need to collect every single crate in the game, which is bloody difficult. The game judges you for missing crates, and from the very first level you're given a choice of the easy way or the hard way, which is just getting to the end of the stage, or get every single crate. For your efforts, if you somehow do pull this off, you get an additional ending. Worth tearing your hair out and throwing your controller out the window? Maybe not, but I like that the challenge is there for those who want it. In a way, Crash is really two games. One game deals with the challenge of just getting through the levels alive, which is hard in and of itself. The other is collecting every single crate in order to 100% the game. I'm personally fine just getting my ass kicked just to get to the end of the level, but I'm the kind of person who plays the game to relax rather than to achieve any particular goal. And I actually think they did a great job with the platforming puzzles in this game. For example, they will use occasionally a mechanic that was introduced earlier, but in a different way. For instance, these enemies are bouncy after you jump on them, and you need to use that mechanic in order to clear these gaps. Of course, I was too terrible at the game in order to clear the gap regardless, but who's counting? Onto the controls. For a platformer to work, its controls need to be tight. Thankfully, they are. This sort of game is nearly impossible to play without good controls, and the game delivers on this front. Yes, the game has no analog support, coming out before the PS1's DualShock controllers, but to be honest, the game doesn't miss anything by not having it. The reason is that it really needs the precision of a D-pad rather than an analog stick in order to play properly. Now, I tried a few different controllers while testing this out, and to be honest, I was happiest just emulating it with just your keyboard. At the end of the day, as long as you have a good control method with distinct and accurate directional buttons, you're good. So something like a keyboard or an actual PlayStation controller is fine. Don't use an Xbox 360 controller, the D-pad will kill you. The camera in this game sometimes catches some flack, and a lot of PS1 era games have horrible cameras, but to me this one manages to not get in the way. There are a little bit of some questionable angles sometimes when it comes to depth, but to me it does the job amicably. I've read other reviewers call out that they wish the game had analog camera control, but in my view this is the wrong kind of platformer for that. Truth be told, a lot of levels in this game are essentially 2D platformers just with 3D graphics. Occasionally they'll play with the depths on those levels just to bring them up to 2.5D, but sometimes you are just playing a prettier version of an old school side-scrolling platformer, which is okay. One thing though that rightly does get knocked is the goddamn save system in the original Crash Bandicoot. So, during the levels, there are these little pickups. Get all 3 in the level and you're taken to a bonus round. Complete the bonus round and congratulations, you're given the chance to save your game. That might not be the absolute worst except for a couple of points. 1. You can die in the bonus round. If you die, you don't get to save because fuck you. 2. Let's say you beat a challenging level. It kicked your butt, but you got through it. Next level, you run out of lives before getting to the save point in that level. Now you have to do both levels again because fuck you. 3. A handful of levels don't even have bonus rounds because I guess fuck you, but I'm not sure why. To me, this is the single worst part of the game and is the reason I'll come out and say I wouldn't play this game on the original hardware anymore because of it. If you use an emulator, you can save state between levels. Technically this is cheating, but I value my sanity. Another workaround is that the game has a password system, so you can always look up a password for the level that you're actually up to, rather than just the last one you actually got a chance to save at. Thankfully they addressed this in the remake, letting you save on the overworld map as desired. Apart from that, you've got the boss battles which are just a little bit, I'd call them strange. When you first play one of these levels, you kind of spend a few lives just working out the system and how it works. Then once you work it out, the challenge is actually quite simple. This is the same right until the final boss, and as a result is a little bit underwhelming. But being that the boss levels in this kind of game are almost a side piece, I won't penalize the game too heavily for that, but it was just something that I thought was a bit not great. On to the graphics. PlayStation 1, early 3D. Can't be good, can it? Well, actually, it's not too bad. I mean, the polygons on the characters can sometimes be a little bit janky, but it looks better than a lot of PS1 era games due to the cartoony style. I mean, it's obviously got nothing against the remake, which I will say is beautiful, but I actually think the game is still quite pretty today. I think the developers were quite clever with some of the backgrounds, and some of the textures look better than you'd expect. I mean, it's not up to modern standards, of course, but it's not visually unattractive. For example, the water here looks nice-ish. You take a closer look and you're like, eh. I mean, that's probably as complimentary as you can get to a 3D PlayStation 1 game's graphics, so all in all, not bad. The other thing about this game is that you do actually get a good amount of playtime here. I mean, look, we're not talking about Skyrim, but unless you're some sort of wizard who's memorized every puzzle, you're not finishing the game in 1 or 2 hours. The length is extended by the secondary challenge of collecting every crate. This requires you to backtrack and revisit earlier levels once you have the right item to unlock the hidden areas in the previous stages. Sometimes I feel like this backtracking might just be a way to artificially add length to the game, and perhaps it is, but I mean, they're not mandatory, so to me it's just a little bonus for the more devoted players. Casual players, hint hint like me, who want to just get to the end of the game, are still greeted with many hours of yelling at their TV when undercooking their jumps and falling in a pit and dying again. So, Crash Bandicoot, does this piece of vintage 3D hold up today? Well, surprisingly yes actually. The game still looks reasonably good. It still plays as good as it did back in the day. It's cute and god damn it, it's fun. Yes, it's not perfect. I've spoken enough about the save system for you to know how I feel, and there are points where perhaps the game is just a little bit too unforgiving. Despite this, I still found it to be a great experience today. In the 90s, I'd never actually played the original Crash. I'd played some of the sequels, but I mean, we all knew the series very well. So I'm really glad to see that this isn't one of those games that, looking back on it, was awesome for its time, but is kind of rubbish today. Of course, with the remakes being out, is it still worthwhile even playing the original? Definitely. I mean, if you have a PS4, sure, go ahead and play the remake. It's extremely faithful to the PS1 Crash games while bringing the graphics into the modern era and fixing the save system. Apart from that though, I'd say the game definitely holds up today. Give it a go if you've never played it. Just not if you've got anger management issues.